Hello and welcome to the Island Lamb. I'm Diane and this is episode 60 and it's the first week of April. And this video is about the joyful simplicities of knitting and the joyful simplicities of spring. And even though it is the first week in April and it is spring, I live in New England. I live on a small island off the southern coast of Rhode Island out in the Atlantic. And today it's a foggy, rainy, windy day, and that's okay. It's a perfect kind of day to come to you and talk to you about knitting and all the things that are going on right now. The last time I spoke with you, my husband and I were in St. Thomas. And you know, it's wonderful to get away, and it really was. It's wonderful to be warm, especially when you're leaving the snow and the cold of winter, but it's also wonderful to come home. And this year we came home to our newly remodeled kitchen. And if that interests you, if you want to see photos of that and hear about the process, I'll include that at the end of this video. But for now, I'm going to stick with my format where I talk about, what am I doing now? What am I knitting? And what am I thinking going forward? So, being home, getting reacquainted with all of my projects. It took a little while to get back into the rhythm, but I'm into it now. So, the first thing I wanted to share with you is what I'm wearing, and I'm showing you some photos. This is the project that I was working on when we were in St. Thomas. This is the Drops design pattern. It's called the Ginger Tea Top. And I mentioned that I had some issues understanding the pattern and the way they did the short rows and the increases for the sleeve and for the inside of the front and back of the raglan. And I said that I don't know if it was me or if it was translations. And I heard from some of you that some of the Drops design patterns are a little tricky. I thought I was figuring it out, but you can kind of see. I mean, I love the pattern. I love the finished product, I should say. I love the color. I don't know if I love this, and I've had it on both ways, and I still have this here. So maybe I didn't really embrace the pattern, but it's still a gorgeous color. It's still very comfortable. I'm gonna wear it. I wore it home. I wore it home on the plane. I wore it back to the island. I've worn it off island to see my mom. So I've worn it like 6 times. There is no pilling. And again, whether I put it on front or back, I cannot really see the effect of the short rows. It just seems to be a little higher in the front and a little lower in the back, no matter how I put it on. So I'm not necessarily saying run out and try this pattern. It was a free pattern. And I think there are probably I know there are a lot of wonderful raglan patterns that I would have probably gotten less of this, see the situation here? Less of that and more of a real raglan where it kind of fits right underneath the arm. But, I don't mind a dolman sleeve, and this sort of has that kind of a dolman look to it. I did go with a little bit more than a cropped, and you'll see that in the photos. So I used, to make this, the Drops Flora fingering weight yarn. And I also used the Southampton silk mohair that I just love. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because I've been using that quite a bit. The combination of the 2 yarns was just perfect. I didn't care for the olivey tone that was in the Drops Flora, and I didn't love the bright Kelly green, kind of St. Patrick's Day green that was in the mohair. But when I put the 2 together, I got this green. I can wear this green. And every time I've worn it, whether it was, on the ferry, someone has touched it and said, oh my God, that looks so gorgeous. And it's comfortable on. I don't feel itchy in this at all. Now, if you have a problem with mohair, you might, but I don't feel any of that. And I'm not getting any hair in my nose. Sometimes when you have mohair, it was on a small needle. I believe I knit this on I think it was on a US 3 and maybe a US 2 for the ribs. This was supposed to be short sleeve. I modified that as well, and I wanted a nice snug fit on the sleeve, not tight, but snug, and I did get that. I'm happy. I haven't even wet washed this. I've steamed washed it. I'm happy with the length of the sleeve. And so what I love about this is the combination of using a DK or a worsted or a heavy worsted and adding a silk mohair to it. And this is my fourth pattern using that combination. And so let's start with the Knitting for Olive fern sweater, and I'm going to show you some photos that I knit from this little booklet when I was first starting to get to know the Knitting for Olive mother and daughter combo, and I learned about them on Fruity Knitting. So when I saw this pattern, I decided I wanted to give that a try. And again, I'm showing you some photos, but here it is. This is absolutely stunning on. It's gorgeous. I used Moondrake fingering weight. I believe it was called Dusty Blue. I got that yarn at the Mermaid's Pearl in Wickford, Rhode Island. And I used the Knitting for Olive silk mohair. This is a very easy pattern, top down. Oh, by the way, this was top down as well. This is a top down. I do wear it with the collar, you know, rolled down, but when I have it inside my coat and I'm traveling, I will put that up. I love the way this sleeve, so there are no decreases. Once you get under, you know, once you divide for the sleeves and you work on the sleeves, there are no decreases until you get to a rapid decrease for this beautiful cuff. The color is just delicious. It's serene. And so this is a combination of a fingering weight merino. I believe let me just be sure of that on this sweater. Yeah, this is a fingering weight merino wool mixed with the silk mohair by Knitting for Olive. Delicious. It feels gorgeous. Again, I don't feel any prickliness from the mohair, but if you have a problem with, you know, your skin has a problem with mohair, Siri alpaca I think would do the job as far as the silk mohair combination. You can get a silk Siri combination. Okay, that was the first project that I used, that combination. Then I had in my stash some Valley Yarn Northfield DK in this color that I got from Webb's. And I also had the Valley Yarn Southampton silk mohair in the same color. And I'm showing you some photos of this as well. And I decided to make this cardigan. And that is a combination now of DK and silk mohair. It's scrumptious. It's gorgeous. The drape is incredible. This is again a Knitting for Olive design. I didn't use Knitting for Olive yarn, but I used the concept of carrying, you know, a DK and a silk mohair. I love this. Okay. And I had great luck with this. And so before I left, I think I had this on the mannequin. I had just gotten the body finished. So this is also a Knitting for Olive design, and it was in the Knitting for Olive book that I purchased last year. It's on the cover. I did not want a really oversized look, so I went with a size small. I got good gauge, and I'm using the recommended Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. And this was the yarn that was gifted to me by Misty, who is a follower who was out on Block Island with her husband, stayed on a boat. She bought this. She had trouble wearing this against her skin. This is merino wool. And she gave me 9 skeins of this. And so I had plenty of this. And again, I had a bag of Valley Yarns Southampton silk mohair. This is the silk mohair that I used in all the projects except for the blue cardigan. That was Knitting for Olive's silk mohair. But this is it. And I bought a pack of this when I was at Webb's. I think it was 10 skeins or 12 skeins, and I just had it in my stash. Because you can add, obviously you can add this to anything. And I'm getting this gorgeous lace. This is called what is this called? Nature Lace Sweater by Knitting for Olive. So it started in the back, you work a shoulder, you come across, you pick up stitches, you work a shoulder, you come across the front, you pick up stitches. And then once you clear, you're back and forth until you separate for the sleeves. Once you separate for the sleeves, you're in the round. Very repetitive. By the time you get to this, you know the pattern pretty well. I mean, I have to peek at it am I doing an SSK or a knit two together? You have to get that kind of in your head. And when I got home, I picked up the sleeve. This is the drop sleeve, and I'm knitting on the sleeve right now. I'm using my ChowGoo minis, which I'm enjoying, and I just have my little lamb stitch marker on. The pattern is repeating for my size every 10 stitches. I just put my little triangle stitch markers. My lamb is my end of row marker, and I've got these little triangle, I like these little triangle stitch markers. So this is going fast. You had some decreases until you got maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches into it. And then now we're just going, and eventually I'm going to put a rib, like here, it's a 2x2 rib, and then I'm going to pick up stitches for the neck and put the 2x2 on here. Adding silk mohair to either a fingering weight or a DK or a heavy merino, or in some of the patterns in this book, it's 2 strands of mohair with a DK, and yes, this may start to sound like it's going to be expensive because you're buying 2 yarns to accomplish the same amount of, work. But if you buy, and I'm not being a sponsor, but if you get your yarn from Webs and you buy it in packs and you take advantage of that discount, the volume discount, and there's great yardage on here. Let's see if I can, oh, here's my glasses. Let me see if I can tell you what the yardage is. There's 230 yards on a skein, and it goes a long way. This heavy merino, which is sky cloud, by the way, that is the color, and this is white. There are 125 meters, so what, 131 yards maybe? You do see some fuzz, you do see some halo. I love working with these 2 yarns together. So that's kind of what I have going on. I'm going to finish work on this and start wearing some of my pieces before it gets too warm. Another nice thing about this time of year in New England is you can still be in your sweaters. You can still have your jeans on. Yeah, we want the sun to come out. We want it to be warm, but I don't mind wearing my my hand knits. In between working on this and then just wanting to not, have to think, I have been working on my Margaret Bradley, Elizabeth Bradley needlepoint kit that I bought last spring or summer. And if you watched my last episode, you saw I found this beautiful queen conch shell when we were at the beach. And I took some photos of it, and I sketched it, and I painted it, and I love that shape of that shell. But also, I had purchased the conch shell needlepoint kit from Elizabeth Bradley. And actually, I think am I holding it upside down? Yeah, I'm holding it upside down. So you can see that I have really made some progress. I have to work on some of those little spikes. I got a couple little spikes to finish, and then, it's just this much blue. And I'm going to turn this into a pillow, and I'm going to put this in the center of my white couch. So if you're thinking about these Elizabeth Bradley kits, this is 100% wool. It's quality. It came in this beautiful bag, in a beautiful box. Here is a photo. Here is the pattern, which it's also stamped. So I'm really only using the chart if I'm in the browns and the beiges and I can't quite distinguish which color. And you can see that it's easy to see if you look at the chart. So, beautiful. This is the shell collection. She has a flower collection, a children's collection, and I think that if you're interested in doing a really fine piece, then this is maybe something to think about. All right, so like what else is going on? So once I got home and put the kitchen back in order, I went off island to spend some time with Mom. And Mom is doing great. As a matter of fact, her garden club meeting is next week, and she's looking forward to that. They're doing a spring kind of a tea, and Mom is working with, so every month a different group of women will put together the flower arrangements and the food and the drink. And Mom is on a committee that's doing that for the April meeting, which is this coming Wednesday. And she's making deviled eggs, and Janice is doing the flower arrangements. And this is just a lovely group of women. Now, I won't be at that. That is a meeting. Mom is able to invite someone to the luncheons, and they do 2 luncheons a year. They do one in June and one at Christmas. And I showed you some footage of the one at Christmas time, but I'm going to join Mom for the one in June, and I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, while I was off, we did what we love to do, and we went out to dinner, and we had coffee out and cappuccino and a chai, and we went into Michael's. Now, Michael's is a craft shop that is a chain, at least in the New England area. I don't know if you have this near you. Maybe it's like a Hobby Lobby. And they have taken over a lot of yarn that maybe was at Joann's Fabric. I never got to Joann's Fabric. That wasn't really near me. But I've had very good luck with the Patton's Croy sock yarn. And I know I've shown you this yarn before, but I did stock up, and I just want to give you an idea. So I bought another. These are 50-gram balls, and there is 166 yards on a skein. So you need 2 skeins to make a pair of socks. So here's what it looks like in the skein. Here's what it looks like knitted up. And I used my size 1.5, I think, maybe a size 2 needle, a very small needle. And look at how nice and tight those stitches are together. I use the Kitchener for the toe. I'm a heel and gusset person, though. You know, I may try to do something a little different in one of my other projects, but I love this yarn. It's great inside my boots. It's cozy. They're warm. Okay, then here's another combination. I'm going to show you what this one looks like knitted up. I made these socks for 2 or 3 people this year, including a pair for myself. Look at how that knits up. And again, I used a fine needle. I think it's my 1.5 Chago. It might be a 2. Either one would be fine. I think you can even go up to a 3. But I wanted that really tight, warm, durable sock to go inside my boots. You know, the boots are rubbing when I hike. So that's just to give you a feel for what it looks like. I made my husband, I made Dave a pair, and I made my brother a pair in this color, which is a nice variegated blue, kind of a marl. And I haven't made this one yet, but look at this, it's got a little purple in it, teal, aqua, navy, and like a maroon. So I stocked up on sock yarn, and I have them in this sweet bag that my cousin Catherine gave me. So in between projects, on the ferry, sitting watching a show on TV. But while I was away, I brought the sock yarn that Catherine gave me, my cousin gave me for Christmas, which was from the Arnie and Carlos collection. Now, this is a different story, okay? These yarns are, okay, this is like a whole different, they look like Fair Isle socks, right? I love the variegation. I'm actually making this pair for Catherine. Look at this. Again, I'm using, oh, now I can really tell you what I'm using for a needle, because this is my needle that I love to use for my socks. This is a 2. This is a 2. I like to use the magic loop method. I could do 2 socks at the same time if I wanted to. I like doing 2 socks at the same time, but I don't mind doing one. And I just felt like putting one on. This yarn is gorgeous. And then Catherine also gave me this Arnie and Carlos, and I made these for myself. Look at that. Is that just gorgeous? On a sock. Oh, I made these on a 3. Yes, okay, so here's a good opportunity to take a look. I made these on a 3, and I made these on a 2. Looser, a little bigger. And the reason I did that is because I don't have 2s in a wooden needle, and we were traveling, and I didn't want my needles to get confiscated. So I packed my metal needles in my checked bag, and I brought these on the plane with my wooden needles. So this is a 3, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little looser gauge versus this, you know, very snug gauge, which I kind of like both. So lots of socks. What do I have on my mind as far as knitting goes? Well, obviously I want to finish this. And I kind of forgot about what I had been working on this past summer. You know, last summer was a lot going on, and I was gung-ho on this, and then I just totally forgot about it. So this is that sideways top, knit from sleeve to sleeve. I was using up the rest of my, or trying to use up some of my linen quill from Pearl Soho. The front is done. I mean, I'm close. I'm on the back. I'm making the back in one solid color. I'm ready to start, I think, decreasing the neck. So I will probably get back to work on this and have this for the spring. I think this is going to look great with white. It will look good with jeans. This is, you know, like an orange. This is navy. So between this and this, I've got something to work on right now. What I need to do is go through my stash again. I'm trying not to buy yarn right now, unless it's, you know, sock yarn, because in September, my cousin and I, Catherine and I, are going to be near Webb's, and we're going to go into Webb's, and I'm trying to start a list of what I would like to make. So before I can do that, I have to go into my stash, see what I have, see what I might want to add. I can tell you right now, I'm going to add some Southampton silk mohair to my stash, and I don't know what else. I got to think about what I want to knit. That's a great time to go yarn shopping, September. You're already thinking about your fall and winter and spring knits. So, but until then, I'm really going to try not to buy and use up what I have and finish some things I have. One thing I didn't even bring over to show you is the Mermaid's Pearl Advent calendar this year was minis, and it made a shawl, and I have to finish that. So, you know, I got that to work on, this to work on, that short sleeve top. And then I have quite a bit of cotton. I'm going to go through that and see, you know, maybe I'll make a cotton top. So that's what I have going on for knitting, and that's what I'm thinking about for knitting. Before we left, my husband and I talked about this with you last time, I think, or a couple of times ago. My husband and I spent a lot of time going through all our closets, all our drawers. I had to empty that kitchen out completely because it was going to be a demo. And we did that in every room in our house. And I donated stuff, and I threw away stuff that should be thrown away. And I realized that I had too much of some things that I just needed to use up and make a decision. What did I like here? You know, why do I have 4 or 5 different brands of this one thing? Let's just figure out what it is I like, and then that's it. So we did a lot of that, and we did that in our linen closet. I did that with my clothes. We did that in our bathrooms, and I am reaping the benefit of being organized. And one of the things I wanted to do when we put that kitchen back together again is I wanted to take that same mindset into the kitchen. I want a set of pans. I don't need 2 sets of pans. I had the pans from when we got married, and then I had the pots and pans we bought, you know, when we could afford nicer pots and pans, but I still had both pans. So we had someone who really wanted and needed those pans and pots, so we moved those on. Same thing with how many rolling pins do I need? How many bowls do I need? How much stuff do I need to put back into that kitchen? One thing I use a lot of, and if you cook, you're gonna be with me on this, is spices. And I'm growing some herbs to make my own spices, and I'm still buying spices. And there's your roasting spices. There are your baking spices, and you want to keep them fresh. And so I used to keep them in a drawer, flat in a drawer with labels up, and I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to take up a whole drawer. So I found this organizational system. I'm going to include this at the end when I kind of do my kitchen remodel review, called Vertical Spice Rack. I'm not being sponsored. They kept showing up in my Instagram. Every time I put in kitchen organization, I would see this system. So I said, well, I'm just going to give it a try. And if I don't like it, I'll return it or gift it or whatever. It wasn't very expensive. It was more expensive than just buying like one of those step-up plastic. So you are going to screw the base into your drawer, and I had to deal with that. I just bought these beautiful new cabinets. Am I really going to screw into them? But I was going to put a liner over it anyway, so I did it, and it was minimal, 4 little screws. And I love it, and I'm going to show that to you when I do the kitchen. I bought an organizational system to go underneath the kitchen sink. So now, there's all this room, and again, I would have been, moving to get to what's in the back versus what's in the front. So I did do that, and I'm going to share those things with you because I'm finding that the simplicity and the simplicity of having order in our home is giving me joy, because when I open up and it's all neat, I just see the beauty in that. And I guess it's part of that whole simple abundance thing I've been talking to you about for a long time, is if I can have gratitude every day for what I do have, and I can keep things in order, if I can try to have that balance, I can see the beauty and I can have joy in my daily life. And that's what I'm experiencing. Yesterday was the first day I baked at the counter, and I made the creme anglaise to make Dave a banana cream pie. And later on this afternoon, I'm going to put my stand mixer on my island and plug it in, because now I have electricity in my island, which I never had before. And I'm going to make whipped cream to top off this pie. And it sounds so simple, but it's giving me so much joy to have that kitchen remodeled. We've been in this house for 26 years, and it was really the last thing that really, really needed to be done. So I just thought I would share that with you, and I'll share more of that with you at the end. So let's see, how long have I been talking? Oh, I'm not doing too bad. The last thing I was going to mention to you is, we've talked about journaling before. I love to journal. I love to write. I have my daily, journal, and I think I've shown it to you before. I don't think I brought it up this time. But so in the morning, I like to just free flow, have my coffee, write what's on my mind. Sometimes I don't do it every day. Sometimes I do. But the thing I'm thinking about now is getting ready for gardening. In New England, it's kind of early, though I did plant some garlic in October on Halloween Day. And I learned about this from the garden shop that I go to on the mainland called the Farmer's Daughter. And just last week, or just this week, I rolled back the tarp and I've got garlic coming up. So that got me thinking, okay, what else should I be planting now? So I reviewed my garden journal from last year. I made a grid. I drew a little diagram. I made notes of what worked. There was my little diagram for my raised beds on my back deck. What did I put in them? What was the weather like? What was worth doing? What wouldn't I do again? And then Catherine gave me this beautiful garden journal, and I'm going to use it for this year. Based on what I learned last year, I'm going to put together what I want to do this year. And so I'm looking forward to that. And so just happy at home, happy to be at home, happy to be back with you, hoping you're having a good spring wherever you are in the world, that you're having a good spring and you're finding some joy in your life and some beauty in your life. And on that note, I'm going to leave you with some footage of our kitchen, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Good morning, and welcome to our newly renovated kitchen. I can't even begin to tell you how much I'm enjoying the serenity of these colors and the simplicity of the cabinetry. Okay, I'm coming in a little closer, and you may remember last year we had already purchased the bar stools, so that was easy. And those chairs in the living room were already there. And so were those beautiful celadon green side tables in the living room. And so that is the feeling. And also, I'm just going to sweep into the dining room for a second and remind you, this is what I went to as far as the vibe in the dining room. And of course, my uncle's painting. So these are the colors that I really wanted to embrace in my home. And the kitchen was the last area. So here we go. So this cabinet color is called Ice Blue. And I never had electricity in the island, and now I do. And this is a quartz countertop, which works for this house because it's not as heavy as marble or I can't think of the other popular brand, but marble or anyway, it's not as heavy. And I just love the beautiful light gray, light brown, kind of very random but gentle striation. And in between the dining room, big doors, I used to have a wine rack, and we opted to have this pantry. We don't have a lot of cabinets, as you'll see in a minute, over by the kitchen. And so this pantry now is where the food and our mixing bowl, our mixing machine, like I forget what you call that, the Cuisinart mixing machine goes. But look at this, the beautiful color and the cabinets and drawers. I'm just so pleased. And I did purchase some expandable bamboo utensil drawer organizers, and that is wonderful to have all this in one place. I'm happy with my poles. They're rounded and they don't catch on my clothing. All right, so that is the ice blue. Now we'll come back into the rest of the kitchen area, and these cabinets are Dove white. I didn't want pure white because there's a lot of white, as you can see, in the counter. We kept our appliances. They were fairly new. But look, we took away the soffit. There was a big soffit above, and it wasn't pretty. It was old, like 1970s maybe type of design. And so that came down. We had the nice molding put on. I think that one of my favorite additions is this backsplash. If you recall, I had this teal green linoleum countertop, and it went up like 4 inches from the counter up to the wall, and the backsplash was part of that linoleum, and then it was just paint, and so it was always getting dirty. I love, love, love this look. And I had a double sink, which, you know, some people love a double sink. I'm going to tell you, I did not love a double sink. I love being able to put my big pot or pan and to be able to wash that. Or if I'm cleaning vegetables, I have a lot of space. I had this before and I like this. This is retractable. It lets me kind of put something up there if I'm just letting it air dry. This little cubby was unexpected, and it was part of discussing how we could get a wall situation around our refrigerator. And I'm going to just tell you what I mean. When we were sitting in the living room, which is behind me in this photo, we could see the gray of the refrigerator. And because my refrigerator is so large and we decided to keep it, it still sticks out. However, down the road, when it comes time to replace that fridge, we will go smaller and it will fit right into that cubby. But by allowing that to happen, it kind of took away from some of the space we would need to have an additional cabinet. So I'm okay with that because I have a place to put all my pretty pottery, and a lot of this pottery was made by potters on Block Island, and now it gets to be seen, and it's something I use all the time, so it's practical. And of course, my espresso machine. And I'm going to show you something that really, I know I'm going too fast, I'm going to slow down, that I thought about for a long time. Where did I want to put my spices? I knew I wanted them next to the stove. I used to keep them in a drawer. And I purchased this vertical spice rack system that I kept seeing in my Instagram feed. And you know, I hate to get, I shouldn't say hate, I don't like to get caught up in advertisements, but this caught my attention because you mount the base to your cabinet. It's only 4 little screws. And then you put in these, let's see, there's a place for your fingers. You pull it out. These are just little bands that you can adjust depending on what you have in there. And I decided to put like basil through coriander. So I know if I'm looking for, you know, something between basil and coriander, I'm gonna pull this one out. And then when I look to the side, I can see what it is, because that's how you're gonna pull it out. So if I was looking for my celery seed, boom. And then I can just slip that back in. If I'm looking for something that's in between garlic, salt, and this could change depending on what I'm keeping, or mustard seed. Once again, I just pinch, I pull out, and there's everything that's in there. So I bought one system. This came in one box. These are the 2-inch, which are for your standard size spices. And then I bought one 4-inch. Now I could have filled this whole area with 2-inch, but this is 34. This holds, I think, 34 of the 2-inch up and top and bottom. And I like these larger mason jars for some of the bulkier items. So I bought one of those, and I did the same thing. And I still have 2 shelves above for some of those bigger things or the things I don't use quite as often. So I'm not being sponsored, but I just want to say vertical spice rack is working for me so far. And I have done some cooking. I did some baking yesterday, and you know, it's keeping the spice area clean. I can see what I'm using, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I'm going to show you one other organizational system I did pick up. And again, I got this on Amazon. The spice rack system I bought directly from them. So I wanted something a little bit more organized underneath the sink. And I like this. Dave had to install it. It was not that difficult. And these drawers slide out. So I'm not crawling over or trying to find out what's in the back. Nice little area for sponges or some of those extra cleaning thingies. All my handmade, homemade cleaners are down there, and it's nice and clean, and I still have plenty of room. I haven't even really filled it yet. So I'll give you one more little sweep of this kitchen. It was 26 years we've been living in this house. And for 26 years, we've just been painting and fixing and living with linoleum and kind of an inferior particle board cabinets and cupboards. And now it really goes with the flow and the color scheme. And I think the serenity and beauty of our home. If you're thinking about doing a kitchen remodel, it's a big project. I know it's a big project. It takes a lot of thinking and a good team. And I want to shout out to Callum, CTM Company, Callum Crawford, who was the contractor. He's a good man, a family man, a great team, Byron and Elvis and his team who did a lot of the work. And I just want to say we got more than we anticipated, and we're very pleased. And I just wanted to share this with you.